The grocery bag split open as I reached my apartment door, spilling formula cans across the hallway floor. Sienna squirmed in the carrier strap to my chest, her small hands tangling in my hair while I scrambled to collect everything before Mrs. Chun from 3B could appear with her judgmental stare. Maybe she'd earned the right to judge. The bills piled on my kitchen counter certainly suggested I was failing at this. Inside, the radiator clanked and hissed, but produced no heat. The landlord had promised to fix it 3 days ago. Another broken promise in a city that seemed built on them. I settled Sienna into her second-hand bouncer, the one with the faded fabric that I'd bought from a consignment shop in Fishtown. 8 months old now. She discovered her feet last Tuesday, grabbing at her toes with a fascinated determination that made my chest ache. Her dark eyes followed me across the cramped studio apartment, and there he was again. Travis. In the stubborn set of her jaw, the way her eyebrows drew together when she concentrated, the olive tone of her skin that would never burn the way mine did. 12 months since I'd signed the divorce papers in a lawyer's office that smelled like expensive coffee and ruined futures. 12 months since I'd walked away from the penthouse views and designer furniture and the suffocating reality of loving a man who dealt in things I couldn't let myself think about. My phone lit up on the counter. Probably Vanessa from work, checking if I'd finished the brief that was due Monday. I'd been editing it during Sienna's naps, between loads of laundry and bottles and the constant mental math of which Bill could wait another week. Philadelphia had felt like salvation when I'd moved here, pregnant and desperate for distance. Far enough from Travis's world that I wouldn't see his face on the news or hear his name whispered in courthouse hallways. Close enough to something resembling opportunity that I could start over. The paralegal position at the firm paid enough to cover rent if I didn't think too hard about groceries. Student loans were in forbearance again. The credit card I'd used for the security deposit was maxed out. I'd stopped checking my bank account 3 weeks ago because the numbers made my hands shake. Sienna began to fuss, that rising whimper that meant she was getting worked up. I mixed her bottle with practiced efficiency, testing the temperature on my inner wrist the way the lactation consultant had shown me. But when I lifted her from the bouncer, her forehead radiated heat against my neck. Too much heat. I pressed my palm to her cheek, then her chest, trying to remember what the pediatrician had said about normal versus concerning. My mother would have known. She'd always known exactly what to do when I was sick, before the aneurysm took her when I was 26 and turned me into someone who had to Google every decision. Sienna's skin felt like it was burning from the inside out. "It's fine," I whispered to both of us, carrying her to the bathroom. "Just teething. You've been drooling all week." The digital thermometer beeped 3 times. 104.1 degrees Fahrenheit. The number glowed accusingly in the dim light. I stared at it, then took it again, certain I'd made a mistake. 104.0. My vision tunneled. I fumbled for my phone, dropping it once before managing to unlock it. Every search result screamed danger. Febrile seizures. Bacterial infections. Organ damage from sustained high temperatures. The pediatrician's office recording informed me they were closed until Monday, but if this was an emergency, I should call 911 or visit the nearest ER. Vanessa's contact appeared on my screen. I called without thinking. "Iva, hey. Did you finish the... Sienna has a fever. 104. I don't know if I should wait or take her in." My voice sounded thin and far away, like it belonged to someone else. "Take her to the ER right now. Don't wait. Don't second-guess yourself. Just go." The hospital was 40 minutes across the city in traffic. The copay alone would destroy what little remained in my checking account, and that assumed they didn't admit her. But none of that mattered if something happened to her because I'd hesitated, because I'd been too proud or too scared or too broke to do what needed to be done. "Iva, are you still there?" "Yeah." "I'm leaving now. I grabbed the diaper bag, shoving in everything I could think of: extra clothes, diapers, the threadbare blanket she wouldn't sleep without, wipes, pacifiers. My wallet felt impossibly light. The insurance card I'd barely been able to afford.
Keys.
Hands shaking so badly I could hardly close the zipper. The stairwell echoed with my footsteps. 6 flights because the elevator had been broken for 2 weeks and the management company kept promising repairs that never materialized. Sienna's crying had shifted into something weaker, more frightening. A mewling sound that reminded me of wounded animals. Stay with me, baby girl. Please stay with me. Philadelphia's November night cut through my jacket the moment I stepped outside. I hadn't thought to grab Sienna's winter bunting. Amateur mistake. Terrible mother. The thoughts came automatically, relentless. I strapped her into the car seat, checking the harness 3 times with numb fingers while sleep began to pelt the windshield. Her eyes were glassy now, unfocused. She should be fighting, screaming, doing anything but this terrible limpness. The drive to Temple University Hospital passed in a blur of red lights I barely saw and turns I made from muscle memory alone. 15 minutes. I counted each one, whispering reassurances I didn't believe. The ER entrance burned bright against the darkness when I finally pulled up, illegally parking in a spot marked for ambulances. Let them tow it. Let them find me. Nothing mattered except getting her inside. I need help. My daughter has a fever over 104, and she's not responding right. The words tumbled out as I pushed through the automatic doors into the harsh fluorescent world of the waiting room. The triage nurse looked up from her computer, saw Sienna's flushed face and half-closed eyes, and immediately stood. Within seconds, we were surrounded by people in scrubs moving with controlled urgency, firing questions faster than I could process them.
Age. Weight.
When did the fever start? Any vomiting? Rashes? Known allergies? What about the father's medical history? A woman with kind eyes and a stethoscope asked. Any genetic conditions we should know about? Immune disorders? His blood type? The question landed like a physical blow. For 12 months, I'd convinced myself I was protecting Sienna by keeping her existence secret. Travis had made his position clear during our marriage. He didn't want children, wouldn't discuss the possibility, shut down every conversation I'd tried to start about our future. When the pregnancy test came back positive 6 weeks after the divorce was finalized, I'd been standing in this new apartment, in this new city, with this new life stretching ahead of me. Telling him had felt like handing him a weapon he could use to drag me back into his world. But this wasn't about me anymore. I don't know his medical history, I admitted. We're not in contact. Is there any way to reach him? With a fever this high and her age, we need all the information we can get. Blood type at minimum, but any genetic factors could be critical. They took Sienna through doors I couldn't follow, leaving me alone in a small consultation room with chairs that had held too many desperate people before me. My wet clothes clung to my skin. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, relentless and unforgiving. A doctor appeared, Dr. Okafor, according to her badge, with tired eyes that had seen too many emergencies. Miss Klein, we're running tests now, but I need to be honest with you. Sienna's fever is dangerously high, and given her age, we need to rule out serious infections. Meningitis is a concern. We may need to do a lumbar puncture. A spinal tap? The room tilted sideways. It's the safest way to determine what we're dealing with. But I need complete medical history from both parents. Is there absolutely no way to contact her father? Travis's face filled my mind. Sharp jawline, calculating eyes that could strip a person down to their secrets, the small scar above his left eyebrow from something he'd never explained. I knew almost nothing about his medical history. He'd shared expensive dinners and cold silences, but never vulnerability. Never the kind of intimacy that came with knowing someone's blood type or family health history. "I can try," I heard myself say. "Please do. We need that information as quickly as possible." The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like a sentencing. I pulled out my phone, staring at the contact I'd never deleted despite promising myself I would. Despite changing cities and names on lease agreements and building an entire life designed around the principle of never needing him again. Travis Rushing. The name I'd spent a year trying to forget. My finger hovered over the call button. Making this call would destroy everything I'd built.
He would know about Sienna.
He would have questions I couldn't answer, demands I couldn't refuse, and leverage over me that he'd never hesitate to use. The man I divorced didn't do anything without calculation. He would see her existence as either an asset or a liability, and I wasn't sure which possibility terrified me more. But Sienna's flushed face flashed in my mind, the way her tiny body had gone limp in my arms, the fear in the doctor's voice when she'd said the word meningitis. I pressed call. The phone rang once.
Twice.
On the third ring, a voice I'd spent 12 months trying to forget cut through the silence. "This is Rushing."
Cold.
Controlled. Dangerous. Exactly as I remembered. My mouth went dry. "Travis." "It's Iva." Silence. Long enough that I wondered if he'd hung up. Then, "I wasn't expecting to hear from you. I need your medical history. Blood type, genetic conditions, anything." The words came out in a rush. "There's a situation and I need information right now." "What kind of situation?" His tone shifted slightly, sharpening with the kind of focus that had made him successful in a business where distraction meant death. I closed my eyes, feeling the last 12 months of carefully constructed distance collapse. "We have a daughter. She's 8 months old. Her name is Sienna, and she's in the ER with a fever over 104, and the doctors need to know your medical history because they're worried about meningitis." The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear my own heartbeat, the hum of the hospital's heating system, the distant sound of a code being called somewhere in the building. When Travis finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that made my entire body go cold. "I'm on my way." The fluorescent lights in the firm's basement file room buzzed like angry insects at 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I'd been there since 7 that morning, pulling documents for a merger that should have closed 6 months ago. My eyes burned from staring at decades-old contracts, and Sienna's daycare charged $1 per minute after 6 o'clock pickup. I'd racked up $43 in late fees this week alone. My phone vibrated for the 5th time. Vanessa checking if I was still alive. I texted back a thumbs up and returned to the boxes, my hands moving mechanically while my mind calculated whether I could skip lunch tomorrow to make up the difference. The apartment smelled like sour milk when I finally got home after midnight. I'd forgotten to take out the trash again. Sienna was asleep at the neighbors, Mrs. Patterson from down the hall who watched her when my shifts ran late. I paid her in cash I didn't have and promises I couldn't keep. Sleep came in fractured pieces. 2 hours, then Sienna crying. Another hour, then the upstairs neighbors fighting. By the time my alarm screamed at 5:30, I felt like I'd been awake for days. Maybe I had been. The days bled together now, an endless loop of diapers and deadlines and the persistent fear that one mistake would collapse everything. Friday brought a different kind of exhaustion. Sienna refused her morning bottle, turning her face away and whimpering. Her cheeks looked flushed, but the apartment was always too hot or too cold. Never right. I told myself it was nothing. Babies got fussy. It didn't mean anything. At work, I messed up a filing deadline. Simple task, the kind I'd done 1,000 times, but I'd transposed 2 numbers, and now the senior partner wanted to see me Monday morning. My hands shook as I apologized to the supervising attorney, promising it wouldn't happen again, already knowing that promise was as worthless as all the others. When I picked up Sienna that evening, the daycare worker mentioned she'd been clingy all day. Not eating much. Maybe coming down with something. I signed the sheet with numb fingers and carried her to the car, her small body radiating heat against my shoulder. At home, I tried the bottle again. She drank an ounce, then pushed it away. Her forehead burned under my palm. I gave her infant acetaminophen, the drugstore brand, because the name brand cost $3 more, and watched the clock. 2 hours. The fever should break in 2 hours. It didn't. By 8 o'clock, Sienna's skin felt like fire. She wasn't crying anymore, just making these small, weak sounds that frightened me more than screaming. I took her temperature 3 times, certain the thermometer was broken. But the numbers didn't change. 104.1 degrees. Then 104.3. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands, already knowing what I had to do, hating every second of it. The number I'd kept buried in my contacts for 12 months glowed on the screen. The only lifeline I had left. The man I'd sworn never to speak to again. But this wasn't about pride anymore. This was about Sienna surviving the night. I made the call that would change everything. The phone rang 3 times before he answered. Each ring felt like a countdown to the end of the life I'd built. This is rushing. His voice hit me like cold water. Controlled.
Precise.
The same tone he'd used when dismissing business associates or ending conversations he deemed unproductive. I'd forgotten how much authority he could pack into 3 words, how the simple act of speaking could feel like a power play. My throat closed. Sienna whimpered in my arms, her small body trembling against my chest. Say something. Anything. Travis. It's Iva. Silence stretched between us, heavy and dangerous. I could hear him breathing, could almost see him in whatever room he occupied, processing the impossibility of my voice after 12 months of nothing. Somewhere in the background, I caught the faint sound of voices, then a door closing. He'd moved somewhere private. I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Each word measured, giving nothing away. Ever. I need your medical history. The words tumbled out too fast, desperate. Blood type, genetic conditions, family illnesses. Anything you can tell me. That's an interesting opening. His tone sharpened, the way it always did when he sensed evasion. Why? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of what I was about to say crush down on my chest. 12 months of secrets, of carefully constructed distance, about to evaporate in a single sentence. We have a daughter. Her name is Sienna. She's 8 months old, and she's at Temple University Hospital with a fever over 104 degrees. The doctors think it might be meningitis, and they need your medical history because I don't know your blood type or if there's anything genetic they should be worried about, and I... Stop. The single word cut through my panic like a blade. Say that again. Slowly. We have a daughter. Sienna. She's sick. I need your medical information. The silence that followed felt alive. Dangerous. I could hear my own heartbeat, Sienna's labored breathing, the distant sound of hospital announcements bleeding through the consultation room walls. You had my child. His voice had gone very quiet, which was somehow worse than if he'd shouted. 8 months ago. And you didn't tell me. Travis, I can explain everything, but right now I just need... Where are you? Temple University Hospital.
The ER.
But I just need your blood type and... Temple University in Philadelphia. It wasn't a question. I heard movement on his end, footsteps, a door opening. His voice became slightly distant, speaking to someone else. Cancel tonight. Call Dimitri. Tell him I need the helicopter ready in 15 minutes and a car waiting at the Philadelphia helipad. My stomach dropped. You don't need to come here. I just need medical information. You kept my daughter from me for 8 months. Each word landed with the weight of a verdict. You don't get to decide what I need to do. Travis, please. This isn't about us. Just tell me your blood type, so I can give the doctors what they need. B negative. No genetic disorders that I know of. My medical records are with Dr. Petrov in Manhattan. I'll have them sent to your hospital within the hour. His voice shifted back to that dangerous quiet. But I'm still coming. You don't have to. I'm on my way. The line went dead. I stared at my phone, Sienna's weight solid and burning against my chest. For words that changed everything. For words that meant Travis Rushing, the man I'd divorced to escape, the man whose world was built on violence and secrets I couldn't live with, was about to walk back into my life. And this time, I'd given him a reason to stay. The countdown had begun. 2 hours and 47 minutes after the phone call, the emergency room descended into controlled chaos. I was sitting in the consultation room, staring at the same motivational poster about healing I'd memorized an hour ago, when I heard the commotion. Raised voices at the nurse's station. The sharp click of expensive shoes on linoleum. Someone saying, "Sir, you can't," just before being cut off mid-sentence. Then the door opened, and Travis Rushing walked into my life like he'd never left. He looked exactly as I remembered, and somehow more dangerous. Dark suit that probably cost more than 3 months of my rent. Hair perfectly styled despite the helicopter ride. Eyes that took in everything in a single sweep. My wrinkled clothes, my tangled hair, the exhaustion I'd been wearing like a second skin for months. His jaw was set in that way I recognized, the one that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Behind him came an entourage that made the small room feel impossibly crowded. 2 men in dark suits who were obviously security. A woman in her 50s carrying a leather medical bag. A younger man with a tablet, already typing. They moved with the coordinated efficiency of people used to Travis's world, where normal rules bent or broke entirely. "Where is she?" His voice was level, but I heard the fury beneath it, coiled tight. "They're running tests. Room 7. But Travis, you can't just." He was already moving, and the entourage moved with him. I scrambled to follow, catching up as he approached the nurse's station where a tired-looking charge nurse was already rising to intercept him. "Sir, family only beyond this point, and visiting hours. I'm her father." He didn't raise his voice.
Didn't need to.
"This is Dr. Volkov, my personal physician. She'll be consulting on the case. These are my security team. We'll need access to my daughter's room immediately, and I want the attending physician found now." The charge nurse opened her mouth, looked at Travis's face, then at the imposing presence of his security team, and made a calculation I watched happen in real time. She picked up the phone. "I'll page Dr. Okafor. You have 3 minutes." Within 90 seconds, Dr. Okafor appeared, looking confused and slightly annoyed until she saw Travis. Something in her expression shifted, a recognition that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with power. "Mr. Rushing, I'm Dr. Okafor. I've been treating your daughter. I want a complete update on her condition. Dr. Volkov will be reviewing all tests and treatment plans." He gestured to the woman with the medical bag. "If you need my medical records, they've been sent to your system. B negative blood type. Full genetic panel available if required." "Sir, I appreciate your concern, but we have protocols." "I'm not asking." Travis's voice dropped to that dangerous, quiet I remembered. "My daughter is in that room with a potentially life-threatening infection. You will give Dr. Volkov full access to her medical information, Or, I will have my attorney shut down this entire floor until someone who values their career makes better decisions. Do we understand each other? Dr. Okafor's face tightened, but she nodded. Room 7 is this way. Travis moved down the hallway like he owned it, and maybe he did now. Everything he touched bent to his will. I followed in his wake, suddenly aware of how completely the situation had shifted. For 12 months, I'd been in control of Sienna's life, making every decision, building our small world brick by careful brick. Travis had been here less than 5 minutes, and already the hospital was reorganizing itself around him. The door to room 7 opened, and I saw him freeze. Just for a second, but I caught it. The moment when Travis Rushing, who never showed weakness, saw his daughter for the first time. Sienna looked impossibly small in the hospital crib, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily in the sterile room. And 4-line ran into her tiny arm, secured with so much tape it looked like it might weigh more than she did. Her chest rose and fell with each breath, and even from the doorway I could see the flush of fever still coloring her cheeks. Travis stood frozen just inside the room, staring at her like she was something that might disappear if he looked away. I'd seen him face down business rivals, navigate dangerous negotiations, command rooms full of dangerous men without flinching. But this 8-month-old baby had stopped him in his tracks. "She has your eyes," he said quietly. "Not to me. To no one." Just stating a fact he was still processing. Dr. Volkov moved past him with practiced efficiency, reviewing the chart at the foot of the crib. Dr. Okafor hovered near the door, watching the interaction with wary calculation. "The fever broke an hour ago," Dr. Okafor said. "We've started broad-spectrum antibiotics as a precaution while we wait for the spinal fluid analysis. She's responding well to treatment." Travis didn't acknowledge her. He moved closer to the crib, his hand reaching out, then stopping. As if he needed permission. As if he suddenly wasn't sure how to touch something so fragile. "You can hold her," I heard myself say. "She's stable now." His eyes met mine for the first time since he'd entered the room, and I saw something I'd never seen in Travis Rushing before. Uncertainty. It lasted maybe 3 seconds before his expression shuttered again, but I'd seen it. Dr. Volkov carefully lifted Sienna, managing the 4-line with expert hands, and transferred her to Travis's arms. He held her stiffly at first, like someone handed him something precious and breakable with no instruction manual. But then Sienna made a small sound, shifting against his chest, and something in his posture changed. Softened. 8 months, he said, still not looking at me. "You kept her from me for 8 months. Travis, I can explain." "Blood work confirms B negative," Dr. Volkov interrupted, reading from the tablet one of Travis's assistants had handed her. "Same as yours, Mr. Rushing. Extremely rare. Less than 2% of the population. So there's no question." Dr. Okafor said it carefully, like she was confirming something that needed confirming. There was never a question. Travis's voice had gone flat. "Look at her." And he was right. Now that they were together, the resemblance was undeniable. The same dark hair, same determined set to her jaw even in sleep. The shape of her ears. The olive tone of her skin. Sienna was half me and half Travis, and no blood test was needed to see it. "The genetic panel will take a few days," Dr. Volkov continued, "but preliminary results show no abnormalities. She's a healthy child, aside from the current infection." "What caused it?" Travis asked. "We're still running tests, but it appears to be a severe viral infection that developed into something more serious. Not uncommon in infants, especially when initial treatment is delayed." The words hit like an accusation. Delayed treatment. Because I'd waited. Because I'd tried to handle it myself. Because I'd been too proud and too poor and too scared to do what needed to be done sooner. Travis's jaw tightened, but he didn't say anything. Just looked down at Sienna, his daughter, the child he hadn't known existed until 3 hours ago. "I need to speak with Eva,"
he said. Alone. Dr. Okafor glanced between us.
I'll give you a few minutes. But Mr. Rushing, your daughter needs rest.
I'm not going anywhere. They filed out, closing the door with a soft click that sounded like a trap closing.
Travis stood there holding Sienna, and I stood across the room, and between us lay 12 months of secrets that couldn't be taken back.
Start talking, he said.
And don't leave anything out.
Sienna was discharged 3 days later with antibiotics and a clean bill of health. I thought Travis would leave once he knew she was safe. I was wrong.
He'd taken over the entire top floor of the Rittenhouse Hotel, 6 blocks from my apartment. When I carried Sienna out of the hospital, 3 black SUVs were waiting at the curb. Travis held the door open on the middle one like I had any choice but to get in.
I can take my own car, I said.
Your car has a cracked windshield and the check engine light has been on for 3 months.
He didn't phrase it as a question.
Get in.
The drive to my apartment took 7 minutes.
I spent all of them acutely aware of Travis sitting beside me, his presence filling the entire vehicle. He hadn't stopped looking at Sienna since we'd left the hospital, studying her like he was memorizing every detail he'd missed.
2 men in suits were standing outside my building when we arrived. Not making any effort to hide. Just there, watching. Who are they? I already knew the answer.
Security.
They'll maintain a presence outside your building. Rotating shifts. You won't see them unless you need them.
I don't need them.
Yes, you do. His tone left no room for argument. You just don't know it yet. My apartment looked smaller with Travis in it.
He stood in the center of the cramped studio, taking in the second-hand furniture, the leaking radiator, the water stain on the ceiling I'd stopped seeing months ago.
His expression never changed, but I felt judged anyway. This is where you've been living, he said. Not a question. An indictment.
It's what I can afford.
It's not safe. The locks are standard builder grade.
The fire escape is accessible from the alley. There's no security system, no doorman, no controlled access.
He turned to face me.
You've been living here with my daughter in a building that wouldn't pass the most basic security assessment. It's a perfectly normal apartment in a perfectly normal neighborhood.
You're not normal anymore, Eva. You have my child.
That makes you a target whether you want to acknowledge it or not.
The knock on the door made me jump.
Travis barely reacted, just moved to position himself between the door and Sienna's crib with an instinct that confirmed everything I'd been trying to forget about his world.
It was one of his security team with a manila envelope. From Mr. Chen, the man said, handing it to Travis.
Travis dismissed him and turned back to me, holding the envelope like it contained something that might detonate.
In a way, it did.
My attorney has prepared preliminary documentation regarding Sienna's custody, support, and living arrangements.
He set it on my second-hand coffee table.
You should review it with a lawyer. You're threatening to take her from me.
My voice came out steadier than I felt.
I'm establishing my parental rights. There's a difference. He moved to the window, looking down at the street where his security team maintained their vigil. You kept her from me for 8 months. You moved to a different city, changed your phone number, made sure I couldn't find you. Why would I trust you not to disappear again? I won't run. Prove it. He turned back, and his eyes were cold. Read the papers.
Call a lawyer.
We can do this the easy way, or we can do it in court with judges and custody evaluators and child psychologists. Your choice. This isn't a negotiation.
No, he agreed. It's not. I'm her father.
That's not something you get to take away because it's inconvenient or because you're scared of my world. You should have thought about that before you kept her existence secret. He walked to the crib where Sienna was sleeping, oblivious to the battle being waged around her. His hand rested on the rail, possessive and protective in equal measure. I'll give you 24 hours to review the documents and consult with legal counsel.
His voice softened slightly. But I'm not going anywhere, Eva. Not this time. The door closed behind him with a soft click.
I was alone in my apartment, but the security team outside and the envelope on my table made it clear that alone was something I'd never be again. The woman waiting at the coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment didn't look like a federal agent. She looked like someone's aunt, maybe a teacher, with reading glasses on a chain and a cardigan that had seen better days. But the way she tracked every person who entered, the way she'd chosen a corner table with clear sightlines to both exits, those told a different story.
Ms. Klein.
She stood as I approached, extending a hand. Special Agent Reeves.
Thank you for meeting me.
I hadn't agreed to meet anyone. She'd sent a text to my phone that morning. We need to talk about Travis Rushing and your daughter's safety. Cafe on Spruce Street. Come alone.
I'd almost deleted it. Almost convinced myself it was spam or a scam or something I could ignore.
But the mention of Sienna had brought me here, leaving her with Mrs. Patterson while Travis's security team watched my building and pretended not to notice me slip out the back entrance through the service alley. How did you get my number? We've been monitoring Mr. Rushing's activities for 18 months. When he mobilized a helicopter and security team to Philadelphia last week, we took notice.
She slid a tablet across the table.
These photos were taken over the past 6 days.
My hands went numb.
The screen showed my apartment building from multiple angles.
Me carrying Sienna to my car. Travis's security team standing watch. A black SUV parked across the street.
But what made my stomach drop were the timestamps and metadata notes. Subject identified.
Target confirmed.
Child present. Who took these? The Calabrese Syndicate. They are a rival organization to the Rushing family. Very interested in anything that might give them leverage.
She swiped to another image.
This was taken yesterday. The photo showed me at Sienna's pediatrician appointment, walking to my car with her carrier. Someone had been close enough to capture her face clearly, close enough to count her fingers if they wanted to. They know about her, Agent Reeves said quietly. They know Travis Rushing has a daughter he didn't know existed 8 months ago. Do you understand what that makes her? A target.
The words felt like ash in my mouth. A very valuable target.
The Calabrese family has been trying to find weakness in Travis's operation for years. You've just handed them exactly what they need.
She pulled the tablet back.
Your ex-husband runs a sophisticated criminal enterprise. Drug trafficking, money laundering, extortion. We've been building a case against him for over a year, but he's careful.
Insulated.
Nothing connects directly back to him. Why are you telling me this?
Because you're in a unique position. You have access to Travis in a way no one else does.
He's letting his guard down around you and your daughter.
She leaned forward. We can protect you.
Both of you. But we need your cooperation. You want me to inform on him. I want you to help us put a dangerous criminal away before your daughter becomes collateral damage in a war you didn't even know existed.
She pulled out a card, sliding it across the table.
The Calabrese Syndicate doesn't make idle threats.
They've already photographed your child.
It's only a matter of time before they make a move. Travis has security.
Travis's security can't be everywhere.
And the moment he takes you and Sienna into his world, you become part of his organization.
Part of his liability.
The Calabrese family won't hesitate to use that.
Her voice softened. I have a daughter too. She's 7.
If someone told me she was being photographed by organized crime, I'd burn the world down to keep her safe.
I stared at the business card. Special Agent Sarah Reeves. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Organized Crime Task Force.
A direct line to a world I'd been trying to escape since the day I filed for divorce.
Think about it, she said, standing. But don't think too long.
The clock is already running, and the Calabrese family doesn't wait for permission. She left cash on the table for coffee neither of us had drunk and walked out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, the business card burning a hole in my pocket, knowing that the simple choice I'd thought I had, Travis or freedom, had just become infinitely more complicated.
The shadow war had found me, and Sienna was already caught in the crossfire.
The custody papers sat on my kitchen table for 6 hours before I called the number Travis had left.
Not because I'd made peace with what I had to do, but because Agent Reeves's photos kept flashing in my mind every time I closed my eyes. Someone had been close enough to photograph Sienna's face. Close enough to hurt her. "I'll sign," I said when Travis answered. "But I want things in writing. Visitation schedules. Decision-making authority. Financial arrangements.
Everything documented.
My lawyer will draw up a comprehensive agreement.
We'll meet tomorrow at 10. And I want my own lawyer present."
A pause. "Of course."
"Send me their information and I'll have the documents forwarded."
I couldn't afford a lawyer.
But I called Vanessa's cousin who'd just passed the bar, explained the situation in the vaguest terms possible, and hoped she was competent enough to keep me from signing away everything. The meeting happened in a conference room at Travis's hotel that was bigger than my entire apartment. His lawyer was a woman in her 40s with the kind of cold efficiency that suggested she won cases through intimidation as much as skill. My lawyer looked young and nervous, taking notes with hands that shook slightly. The agreement was 37 pages. Child support that made my eyes water. A custody schedule that gave Travis alternating weeks and all major holidays. Decision-making authority split 50-50 on everything from medical care to education. And buried in Section 12, Subsection 4, temporary residential relocation for security purposes. What does that mean? I asked. It means until the current security situation is resolved, you and Sienna will reside in a location I deem safe.
Travis's tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. Your apartment has been compromised.
There are elements that pose a credible threat. Agent Reeves's words echoed in my head. The Calabrese family doesn't wait for permission. For how long?
As long as necessary. I signed. What choice did I have?
The move happened that afternoon. Travis's people packed my entire apartment in 2 hours, handling my second-hand furniture and threadbare clothes with the same careful efficiency they'd probably use for priceless art. Everything went into storage except what I'd need immediately. Sienna's clothes and toys, my work laptop, enough personal items to make the transition bearable. The penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building in Rittenhouse Square. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Hardwood floors that gleamed. Kitchen with appliances I didn't know how to use. A nursery that had been set up in the 12 hours since I'd agreed to move, complete with a crib that probably cost more than 3 months of my old rent. The building has 24-hour security, Travis explained, walking me through rooms that felt more like a museum than a home. Controlled access. Cameras in all common areas. My security team occupies the floor below us. I noticed the cameras immediately. Small, discreet, in every corner. Watching. Are there cameras in the bedrooms?
No.
I'm not a monster, Eva.
He moved to the window, looking down at the street.
But the living areas are monitored. For your protection.
I joined him at the window.
3 black SUVs were parked along the curb.
Men in suits standing at intervals. Watching the building.
Watching the street.
Watching everything. This is temporary, I said. More to convince myself than him. Of course.
But something in his tone suggested temporary was a flexible concept. That night, after Sienna fell asleep in her new crib surrounded by luxury she'd never appreciate, I stood in the bathroom with the door locked and pulled out Agent Reeves's card.
The phone rang twice before she answered.
I'm in, I whispered.
I'm living in his penthouse.
I can get you information.
Good. We'll need regular updates.
Movements, meetings, anything unusual.
Can you handle that? I looked at myself in the mirror. Exhausted. Terrified.
Trapped between the FBI and a man who'd just proven he could reorganize my entire life in an afternoon. I don't have a choice.
None of us do, Agent Reeves said softly.
Welcome to the game, Ms. Klein.
The line went dead.
I deleted the call history, flushed with paranoia about those cameras Travis swore weren't in the bedrooms, and wondered if I'd just made a deal that would save my daughter or destroy us both. I'd been in the penthouse for 5 days when Travis came home early with an expression that made my stomach drop. He dismissed his security team with a gesture and waited until we were alone before speaking.
We need to talk about the park.
That morning, I'd taken Sienna to Rittenhouse Square. Just 20 minutes of fresh air while Travis's security maintained their perimeter.
Normal mothers did this. Normal children needed sunshine.
I'd convinced myself it was safe. What about it?
But I already knew.
The way he was looking at me, the tension in his shoulders, the controlled fury in his voice.
You were photographed. Multiple angles.
Professional equipment. He pulled out his phone, swiping through images that made my blood run cold. Me pushing Sienna's stroller.
Sitting on a bench.
The security team in the background, watching everything except the telephoto lens capturing us from a building 3 blocks away. The Calabrese family is making a statement.
They know where we are. They know our routines.
They are telling me they can reach her anytime they want. Your security was right there. My security can't stop a bullet from 300 yards. He said it flatly, without drama, just stating a fact. I brought Sienna into my world when I came to that hospital. Made her visible.
Made her a target. That's on me.
But staying here, staying in the city, that's not an option anymore.
What are you saying? We're relocating. Tonight.
My primary residence outside the city. It's the only place I can guarantee her safety.
Travis, I have a job. I have a life.
You have a daughter who's being hunted by people who would use her to get to me. His voice cut through my protests like a blade. Your job doesn't matter. Your life in Philadelphia doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is keeping Sienna alive. The SUVs arrived at sunset.
More than before.
A convoy that screamed wealth and danger in equal measure. Travis's security team moved through the penthouse with military efficiency, packing everything essential, leaving the rest. I held Sienna while strangers dismantled the life I'd been living for less than a week, wondering if I'd ever stop running, ever stop being packed up and moved like a chess piece. The drive took 90 minutes, heading northwest into Pennsylvania's countryside. We passed through increasingly rural areas until finally turning onto a private road marked only by a subtle sign. Private property. No trespassing. The security gate was serious, built into a wall that extended in both directions into darkness. Armed guards checked credentials before waving us through. The compound revealed itself gradually. Main house first, sprawling across manicured grounds, all stone and dark wooden windows that reflected the surrounding forest. Guest houses scattered across the property. A building that looked like a garage but probably housed a vehicle collection. Gardens that had been professionally landscaped. And everywhere, security. Cameras on every corner. Motion sensors along the perimeter. Guard stations disguised as groundskeeper sheds. Men patrolling with dogs. This is your home? I asked as the SUV stopped in front of the main entrance.
This is where I'm safest.
Which means it's where Sienna's safest. He looked at me, and something in his expression softened slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted. But the Calabrese family just declared war. And in war, you don't leave your most valuable assets exposed.
The door opened.
A woman in her 60s stood in the entrance, clearly staff, her expression warm but professional. Welcome home, Mr. Rushing. Shall I show Ms. Klein and the baby to their rooms?
Their rooms. Plural. As if this was permanent.
As if I'd already agreed to stay forever in this beautiful prison that Travis controlled absolutely. I followed her inside, Sienna sleeping against my shoulder, and walked into a house that felt less like a home and more like a fortress.
The walls were thick stone. The doors were reinforced.
Security panels were everywhere. This wasn't just Travis's residence. This was his command center. The heart of everything he controlled. And I'd just walked into it willingly, with his daughter in my arms and a federal agent's number burning in my phone. The suite they gave me occupied the entire east wing. Bedroom with a king bed I'd never asked for, sitting room with furniture that belonged in museums, bathroom with heated floors and a tub deep enough to drown in. Sienna's nursery connected through a door I could leave open at night, decorated in soft creams and pale blues, with a window that overlooked gardens I hadn't seen in daylight yet.
It was beautiful. It was a cage.
Both things could be true. The staff member who'd greeted us, Mrs. Chen, the estate manager, had given me a full tour.
Kitchen on the main level, always staffed. Dining room for formal meals. Library with first editions behind glass.
Office where Travis conducted business I wasn't supposed to ask about.
Guest suites for associates who visited.
Security command center in the basement that I absolutely could not access. Mr. Rushing asks that you make yourself at home, Mrs. Chen had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Those certain areas are restricted for security purposes.
I'm sure you understand.
I understood perfectly. I had the run of a gilded prison, as long as I stayed within the boundaries Travis permitted. That night, after Sienna fell asleep in her new crib surrounded by luxury she'd never remember, I sat in the darkness of my sitting room and stared at my phone. The encryption app Agent Reeves had sent me was disguised as a meditation timer.
Clever. Innocuous.
The kind of thing a stressed mother might download without raising suspicion. I activated it, watching the screen shift to reveal the real interface.
Secure messaging. Location services.
File transfer. Everything I'd need to send information the FBI could use to build their case.
My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. The point of no return.
Once I sent this message, I became an informant.
A spy.
A woman betraying the father of her child to save that same child from the world he'd built.
I typed quickly before I could change my mind.
Location confirmed. Estate approximately 90 minutes northwest of Philadelphia.
Heavy security. Multiple buildings. We'll gather more details and send coordinates.
Regular communication will be difficult but will report when possible.
This is temporary, I said. More to convince myself than him. Of course.
But something in his tone suggested temporary was a flexible concept. That night, after Sienna fell asleep in her new crib surrounded by luxury she'd never appreciate, I stood in the bathroom with the door locked and pulled out Agent Reeves's card.
The phone rang twice before she answered. I'm in, I whispered. I'm living in his penthouse.
I can get you information.
Good. We'll need regular updates.
Movements, meetings, anything unusual.
Can you handle that? I looked at myself in the mirror. Exhausted. Terrified.
Trapped between the FBI and a man who'd just proven he could reorganize my entire life in an afternoon. I don't have a choice. None of us do, Agent Reeves said softly. Welcome to the game, Ms. Klein.
The line went dead.
I deleted the call history, flushed with paranoia about those cameras Travis swore weren't in the bedrooms, and wondered if I'd just made a deal that would save my daughter or destroy us both. I'd been in the penthouse for 5 days when Travis came home early with an expression that made my stomach drop. He dismissed his security team with a gesture and waited until we were alone before speaking. We need to talk about the park. That morning, I'd taken Sienna to Rittenhouse Square. Just 20 minutes of fresh air while Travis's security maintained their perimeter.
Normal mothers did this. Normal children needed sunshine.
I'd convinced myself it was safe. What about it?
But I already knew.
The way he was looking at me, the tension in his shoulders, the controlled fury in his voice.
You were photographed. Multiple angles.
Professional equipment. He pulled out his phone, swiping through images that made my blood run cold. Me pushing Sienna's stroller.
Sitting on a bench.
The security team in the background, watching everything except the telephoto lens capturing us from a building 3 blocks away. The Calabrese family is making a statement.
They know where we are. They know our routines.
They are telling me they can reach her anytime they want. Your security was right there. My security can't stop a bullet from 300 yards. He said it flatly, without drama, just stating a fact. I brought Sienna into my world when I came to that hospital. Made her visible.
Made her a target. That's on me.
But staying here, staying in the city, that's not an option anymore.
What are you saying? We're relocating. Tonight.
My primary residence outside the city. It's the only place I can guarantee her safety.
Travis, I have a job. I have a life.
You have a daughter who's being hunted by people who would use her to get to me.
His voice cut through my protests like a blade. Your job doesn't matter.
Your life in Philadelphia doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is keeping Sienna alive.
The SUVs arrived at sunset. More than before. A convoy that screamed wealth and danger in equal measure.
Travis's security team moved through the penthouse with military efficiency, packing everything essential, leaving the rest. I held Sienna while strangers dismantled the life I'd been living for less than a week, wondering if I'd ever stop running, ever stop being packed up and moved like a chess piece. The drive took 90 minutes, heading northwest into Pennsylvania's countryside. We passed through increasingly rural areas until finally turning onto a private road marked only by a subtle sign. Private property. No trespassing. The security gate was serious, built into a wall that extended in both directions into darkness. Armed guards checked credentials before waving us through. The compound revealed itself gradually. Main house first, sprawling across manicured grounds, all stone and dark wooden windows that reflected the surrounding forest. Guest houses scattered across the property. A building that looked like a garage but probably housed a vehicle collection. Gardens that had been professionally landscaped. And everywhere, security. Cameras on every corner. Motion sensors along the perimeter. Guard stations disguised as groundskeeper sheds. Men patrolling with dogs. This is your home? I asked as the SUV stopped in front of the main entrance.
This is where I'm safest.
Which means it's where Sienna's safest.
He looked at me, and something in his expression softened slightly. I know this isn't what you wanted. But the Calabrese family just declared war.
And in war, you don't leave your most valuable assets exposed.
The door opened.
A woman in her 60s stood in the entrance, clearly staff, her expression warm but professional. Welcome home, Mr. Rushing. Shall I show Ms. Klein and the baby to their rooms?
Their rooms. Plural. As if this was permanent.
As if I'd already agreed to stay forever in this beautiful prison that Travis controlled absolutely. I followed her inside, Sienna sleeping against my shoulder, and walked into a house that felt less like a home and more like a fortress.
The walls were thick stone. The doors were reinforced. Security panels were everywhere.
This wasn't just Travis's residence. This was his command center. The heart of everything he controlled. And I just walked into it willingly, with his daughter in my arms and a federal agent's number burning in my phone. The suite they gave me occupied the entire east wing. Bedroom with a king bed I'd never asked for, sitting room with furniture that belonged in museums, bathroom with heated floors and a tub deep enough to drown in. Sienna's nursery connected through a door I could leave open at night, decorated in soft creams and pale blues, with a window that overlooked gardens I hadn't seen in daylight yet.
It was beautiful. It was a cage.
Both things could be true. The staff member who'd greeted us, Mrs. Chen, the estate manager, had given me a full tour.
Kitchen on the main level, always staffed.
Dining room for formal meals.
Library with first editions behind glass.
Office where Travis conducted business I wasn't supposed to ask about.
Guest suites for associates who visited.
Security command center in the basement that I absolutely could not access. Mr. Rushing asks that you make yourself at home, Mrs. Chen had said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Those certain areas are restricted for security purposes.
I'm sure you understand.
I understood perfectly. I had the run of a gilded prison, as long as I stayed within the boundaries Travis permitted. That night, after Sienna fell asleep in her new crib surrounded by luxury she'd never remember, I sat in the darkness of my sitting room and stared at my phone. The encryption app Agent Reeves had sent me was disguised as a meditation timer.
Clever. Innocuous.
The kind of thing a stressed mother might download without raising suspicion. I activated it, watching the screen shift to reveal the real interface.
Secure messaging. Location services.
File transfer. Everything I'd need to send information the FBI could use to build their case.
My fingers hovered over the keyboard. This was the moment. The point of no return.
Once I sent this message, I became an informant.
A spy.
A woman betraying the father of her child to save that same child from the world he'd built.
I typed quickly before I could change my mind. Location confirmed.
Estate approximately 90 minutes northwest of Philadelphia.
Heavy security. Multiple buildings. We'll gather more details and send coordinates.
Regular communication will be difficult but will report when possible. I hit send and watched the message encrypt and disappear. Somewhere, Agent Reeves would receive it, decode it, add it to whatever file they were building on Travis Rushing.
One more piece of evidence. One more step toward bringing down his empire. The phone buzzed. Her response came through immediately. Received. Good work. Be careful. Document everything.
Names, faces, meetings, anything unusual.
We need patterns.
Regular check-ins every 72 hours if possible. If you're in danger, use the emergency code. I deleted the conversation and closed the app. The meditation timer reappeared, innocent and unremarkable. I set the phone on the nightstand and moved to the window. The ground stretched into darkness, punctuated by security lights and the silhouettes of guards making their rounds. Beyond the walls, forest extended in every direction.
Isolated. Remote. Exactly where Travis wanted us.
Protected from the Calabrese family. Protected from anyone who might threaten Sienna.
Protected from escape. A soft knock at the door made me turn.
Travis stood in the hallway, still in his suit despite the late hour. Is everything satisfactory? He asked. It's beautiful.
I kept my voice neutral. Thank you.
Sienna's room has a monitor. The feed goes to my phone and the security office. If anything happens during the night, someone will be there immediately. You've thought of everything. I always do.
He studied me for a moment, and I wondered what he saw. A woman resigned to her fate? A mother grateful for protection? Or something else, something that made him cautious?
Get some rest, Eva. Tomorrow we'll establish routines. Make this place feel like home.
This isn't home.
Not yet, he agreed. But it will be. He left, and I listened to his footsteps fade down the hallway. When silence returned, I checked on Sienna one last time, watching her sleep peacefully in her expensive crib, unaware that her mother had just made a deal that could destroy everything. I'd entered Travis Rushing's fortress willingly. I'd accepted his protection, his control, his world.
But I'd done it with a plan. The FBI thought I was their asset. Travis thought I was his responsibility.
And somewhere in between those two illusions, I'd find a way to take my daughter and disappear into a life neither of them could touch. The game had begun. And I was playing both sides, knowing that the slightest mistake would cost me everything that mattered.
But for Sienna, I'd risk it all.